What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to the Chariot Friends. Justin here, and how you feeling? The moon is in Cancer. You know, this is a very interesting time. This is where the moon is at home, and I think that this is always a really great time to, anytime the moon is in a water sign, to really just look at what is flowing through you, paying attention to the 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 waxing and waning, or the ebb and flow, or the pushing and pulls of the tides. You know, there's always this cyclical motion that when we get into the moon, especially when the moon is in Cancer. We're going to get into all that here in a moment. But if you're new here, again, my name is Justin. And know that when you're coming across this video, you're in sync with the moon, and who doesn't love that? But this is also a place for you if you happen to have Cancer in your placements. Sun, moon, rising, wherever. This one's for you. But we all have moon placements, and all have that rules a Cancer portion in our chart. So we definitely benefit knowing what that luminary is doing in the sky. And I'll do tarot card spreads amongst other things based off that lovely light, the good old moon. And I'll talk about what sign it's in, what phase it's in, and when it's going void. Of course, just all them lunar shenanigans. And just so you're all aware, this is a general reading, not a one-to-one. So take what fits into your story, discard the rest, and everything will be dope. Now, let's jump into it, because yeah, we got some cool energy here. You know, I personally like the moon in Cancer. Is not a it's a pretty chill one for me personally. In my chart, there's not a whole lot of activity going on. The moon will talk with my midheaven, conjunct the sun, but you know, sometimes that's nice to have that little bit of that little lull period sometimes. But let's go ahead and get into the lunar shenanigans. And happy Mercury Day, by the way, depending on when you're watching this. Hope you're all feeling well. But the moon will have entered into Cancer on the 28th of May. And this is going to happen at about 10:33 a.m., and that's Pacific time. And we're in the waxing crescent phase. Now, the waxing crescent is when the moon's just now, we're starting to get a sliver of light. The moon's smiling at us in the sky, getting excited for all the things that we're getting ready to do. all the stuff that's about to flourish. And I think that this is an interesting one to pay attention to what is coming up for you, especially with how you're feeling. Because let's talk about Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon, so again, that's where the moon's at home. And when you have a luminary, and let's just talk about the planet or luminary being in domicile for a minute, that is when the planets, that's when the celestial body, their energies work very well in that sign. So all of the things that Cancer embodies, that cardinal, water, receptive, or yin in nature. It has that nurturing energy, one that the moon is good, known for. But also, two, there's a deep intuition with Cancer, because that's the source of the waters, the wellspring, if you will. And I think that this is always a great time to pay attention to whatever emotions come up during, while the moon is in Cancer, and see how you feel through them. Are there any particular ones that really get you thrown out of whack? Or are there certain feelings that, you feel maybe this exuberance, maybe even, and then it's like, it comes, or leaves as quick as it goes, and it's like, that's the Cancer energy. I think sometimes can be very fleeting, especially when you pay it to, like, really kind of tune into the cycles, or tune into, like, different kind of lunar transits and things like that. Because one thing that I've been kind of reflecting on here, like, or really just been, kind of came into my mind was, that Cancer portion of our chart is a really active one. Because when you think about just the transiting moon alone, the moon moves a degree every 2 hours. And every time that transiting moon is forming an aspect with your natal planets, that's going to affect wherever you have Cancer in your chart. So that's why, there's a lot of busyness, in the Cancerian energy. And that's why, where if you know any Cancerians, how you'll notice the moods maybe be here, and then the mood might be here, and then the mood might be here. It's just because that's what's going on. It's not always easy. We sometimes, I think, Cancer can catch a lot of flack, and and there is a responsibility with that Cancer has to. And again, this is just an energy, and those of us that have that energy, that emotional knowledge and emotional wisdom, responsibility, understanding, not just understanding the emotions, but really kind of feeling through them, how you feel through them. Because you typically, when you notice things like stuff, the feelings will come or leave as quick as they come. and sometimes that's with the good feelings too. But I think it's honoring all the varying stages or the varying degrees of emotions, and then just learning how to process that. And then when you get into certain cycles, that's why I like to talk about, like, okay, when the moon's in Cancer, it's only forming so many aspects, because that can be hard, again, to keep track of all of the aspects, and during that period of time they may happen at really odd hours, but you can at least get a general flavor. So like if you have like a lot of, with this moon in Cancer, if you have a lot of cardinal placements, let's say especially in like Capricorn, or not, well, yeah, Capricorn too, but I'm thinking like in Libra and Aries, that's going to be forming squares with that Libra and Aries. So that Cancer house is going to be, there may be tensions that are coming up there. Or in Capricorn, there are some oppositions that are coming up, some opposing things where you're just like, okay, some choices have to be made. Maybe a certain environment or a certain, certain relationship is forcing us to make a different decision and forcing us to make some sort of move here. So getting eyes on that can really help you, I feel like, where you don't get reactive, where you can notice that there's something off, and it's like, okay, this is something that I've picked up from someone around me, then it gets you like, okay, let me reflect on the people that I've been talking to, maybe the people that you're around quite a bit, have I been sensing something, or is this something that's coming up within me? And then learning how to articulate that. Because I find where, the more that you develop these relationships with the emotions, with the feelings, they may seem irrational at first, but it's just because I think that as a society, for a long time, there was this energy of not really honoring the emotions, of really kind of suppressing those feelings. And now that's led to the extreme where now the people are overly emotional, and I find with like when you're just overcome with the emotions and then don't know what to do with them. Someone had described this in a way that, I think it was someone with a Capricorn, but this is why I appreciate kind of Capricorn perspective, because they called it wasted emotions. You just feel really big and then don't do anything about it. And Cancer is still an initiator at the end of the day. So it is learning how to, when those emotions come, especially those bigger ones, okay, how do I apply some love to this thing? How do I learn to love, again, all of these varying emotions? Because they're not going to stop. It's not going to stop. So you might as well learn how to make friends with them. Learn how to, like, okay, when I'm feeling this is bringing up with me. Or when I'm around this person, I tend to notice these feelings. And how do I, and that's another thing too, I like to mention, one kind of last stop with this, where I've noticed a very common phrase is that, oh, they made this thing or this person made me feel some type of way. And no one can make you feel some type of way, not if you don't allow it. There's some times where I'll, let's say my partner, for example, just kind of like, this just happened not too long ago, where I wasn't in the mood for any sort of games, and it just kind of kept poking and poking and poking, and then I reacted. And then but it wasn't like he made me feel that way. I was just like, no, I noticed this thing in me, and so I was handling it. And could I handle it better? Yeah. And I ended up talking with him about it later, and it just led to this place of, you know what, like when I'm not feeling in that space, I don't have to give it my energy anymore. I could just leave, and it's like, you know what, I'm gonna remove myself, and it doesn't have to make sense to you. I'm just trying to do it so that we can maintain the peace, so that we can come from a more level place. So that's just something too. I think that, the more that we can develop a language with our emotions, the better. Because, one last little thought. For me personally, every time there's again, aspect to my moon, or when the moon's transit, that's activating my 12th house. And 12th house it can be difficult, and there's sometimes where I need time alone to process this stuff, especially when there are emotions that they'll just kind of come, it'll feel like just out of the blue. And I talk with a lot of people, on a day-to-day basis. So I do need a moment to really just kind of cleanse for a minute, to detox and do all that stuff, get all the energies out, so I can find the source of me again. So there's some things I think to explore while the moon is in Cancer. Oh, you know what? Let me go ahead and switch over here real quick. I've got a whole chart for you here before we get into the tarot. But as you see here, yes, the moon is in Cancer, just settled in at home, and the moon's only going to form a couple of aspects over these next couple days while it's in here. It's starting off right off the bat though with a square to Saturn. And so there may be this will of this energy of, wanting to maybe get something started, but maybe you don't. I mean, it could be something as simple as maybe you don't feel like it. Maybe there's some responsibilities and they're asking a lot of you. And that's a dip. It's always interesting to compare that energy with Cancer and Aries, where Aries is just like a let's do it. I feel it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Cancer's like some days I'm really the energy's feeling really inspired in doing that thing, but there are other times where it's like no, I have other things that I need to process and I don't want to do that. And so maybe there might be some of that tension that's going on. So I would watch out for any sort of like, if you notice any sort of irritation in yourself or frustration in yourself or in others, that may be just what that is. That Saturn, we're still kind of getting settled in, kind of maybe understanding what these Saturnian themes are bringing up for us. So it's just allowing some compassion and maybe even allowing some space so that you can figure out, instead of like having again reactive responses, we can come with a more level approach to these things, which I think will eventually happen. Even if you do happen to have a little bit of a rough patch starting off, eventually the moon is going to end up with a square with Venus. And it's a little, squares with the malefics and between the malefics and the benefics definitely hit different. Because Saturn being the greater malefic, that can always be, a little heavy. Sometimes maybe can bring some depression, some anxiety around time and things like that. But with Venus, it's like we're learning how to harmonize that. It's like, okay, these things were coming up for me. So what do I need to do to better my relationship with these emotions? Maybe I need to learn how to talk about this better. Maybe I need to give myself that space. Maybe I need to go for a run. Maybe I need to write. Maybe I need to create something along those lines. But I find that maybe that Venus and Aries can help us, again, find a way to harmonize. Because that's what Venus does. It's just something that's going to require a bit more work just because it's Venus is in a more active sign right now in Aries. So that's just, I think, some things to just kind of meditate on there. But I think it would end on a nice kind of harmonious note ultimately, but one that will require a little bit of, just a little bit of effort on all parties' sides there. But we'll get into that more here with the tarot. Now, last couple of things here. These readings that I do, they're not gender specific readings, so apply these energies to people as they make sense for your situations. Now, I'm going to pull 6 cards, and they're going to cover different topics. And I'm switching things up. I'm kind of playing around with some things right now. And I moved your kind of I-Ching to the end of the reading. We'll get some advice from the I-Ching on these energies here. But I'm going to pull different cards. They're going to cover, or 6 cards are going to cover different themes. And you got changing lines 2, 5, and 6. So we're going to get clarifiers for cards 2, 5, and 6. Now let's get into your first card here. That down there. But let's get into your first card here, which talks about the topics of yourself related to others. This can be about just you and your relationships that are around you. Oh, speaking of Venus, you got the Empress here. And you know what? This to me, when we're talking about that relationship of self versus other, I would be checking in to see how you've maybe been spreading yourself around there. Have you been, I think one, if this is maybe in a more sort of like solitary, independent on energy right now, maybe you've been doing a lot of focusing on yourself. I think that this would really be enjoying the fruits of your work, really doing something to celebrate the efforts that you've done for yourself. Maybe you've been working on maybe some sort of self-esteem issues, maybe you've been making more time just for self-care, something along those lines. The Empress is very abundant energy. So I think that this is just one for self, just learning to tap into the abundance, the fecundity that is you, and thinking about how you want to share that with others. That's something that I think to think about, but also too, maybe even how you receive from others, as well. I remember asking someone, because most of the time, when I personally receive, I'm always grateful, but I found that, I was talking with someone about this, and they said, I receive pretty anxiously. And I was just like, oh, I hadn't heard that before. And I was just like, Yeah, like talk to me more about that. What does that look like? Why is that? Is there some sort of like shame around it? So there's just something there. I think if that's a feeling that's maybe coming up, just to kind of pay attention to that as well there. And I'm getting even to just like the responsibility on what we take on from others. There's this interesting sort of this pelican here. I'm trying to remember where I heard this on a podcast where it was talking about how the babies get their nurse from the pelican there, and there's the blood literally of the mother that's getting involved in this, and it's just like reminding of just like how much of you're giving yourself of your life energy that you're giving as well. And especially if you're one that maybe has a lot of like seventh house focuses, things like that, I'd be just kind of mindful of that there. And even on the flip side, if you're someone who has a lot of first house focuses, I'd be mindful even just about just taking all the time, or just like it being just all about you. That's just something that I think the Empress is giving in. Because it's one thing to have all this abundance, but if you don't have anything to share it with, that can be, it's one thing to feel confident by oneself, but then it's another thing, I think, to just be like, it's one thing to be alone, and then a whole other thing to be lonely. So that's something I think to just kind of think about there that's coming up with that Empress. Now, let's get into your next card here, which talks about any sort of like money matters and things along those lines. Resources, material goods, things like that, shared income. Oh, and that's a place to have it. That's a great guy to have this with. You got the Prince of Disc here. And I'm getting this energy of maybe for some, this need for maybe being a bit more methodical with your resources. Maybe one, how you share your energies, going back to that Empress. Maybe how you're sharing your energies with people. That might be something there. Maybe scheduling more time. Maybe you tend to give yourself more here to here to here. Maybe this is something where you're laying out a chart. Okay, this is where my time is going for certain relationships. Okay, this is where I want to adjust this here. Or this could be too, again, maybe you're looking at maybe you're looking at your worth, your abundance, and maybe it's not flowing as well as you would like. So it's like looking for different practices. Maybe we need to be a little frugal in some areas so that you can open up more flow for other areas as well there. Maybe this could be looking for some sort of like financial advisor, some sort of investor, some sort of Prince of Disc type to help you work through those themes if that's something that you have trouble with. But let's get a clarifier with the Prince of Disc and get some more into that. Interesting. So you got the Knight of Cups here. And I just got like emotional spending. That's something that just kind of came through there. So that would be one thing that I'd watch out for. Even emotions in a sense of maybe you're feeling, when you let's say for example, if you just started this new relationship, you're feeling really excited, and of course we just wanted to spend, our time, again, all of our time, all of our resources, and just really just want to fuel this thing. But I would just be kind of mindful of that. That's just something that's coming through there about giving too much of yourself, being overly invested, and then not kind of losing yourself in that energy. That's something I think just something I think just warranting some attention there. All right, now let's get into your third card here, which gets more into, let's see how you're doing like spiritually. Let's see what's going on in that realm. Oh, I'm with it. I hope so. You got the Lust card here, which is the Strength card. And this to me, maybe there's this energy of, where the inner will is being tested in a sense. This is the Lust card is inner strength. And maybe there's something that might be testing your spiritual practice in a sense. Maybe your beliefs are maybe being challenged. The things that you used to put your energy to, again, maybe it's being brought into question. And that would be very appropriate too, considering that Saturn just just moved into Aries, and now we're sensing a test of the will. Is this really something that you want to do? Is this something that you really feel called for? Do you feel that, and this could be where maybe you're needing to find maybe different areas to kind of inflame that passion in a sense. Maybe you're looking into different cultures, like studying different meditations, or maybe this could be just learning different practices. Maybe you want to, I keep getting like, herbology could be something that's coming into the mix, like working with plants, or yeah, maybe just even just like a new line of just like study, or maybe even looking at revising a practice, maybe how to deepen something. Maybe you've been doing like maybe a certain like a basic meditation, but now we want to take it again to that next level is what this energy is kind of giving me here. So, and I'm even getting too with this card, it's just like looking at how your community, your environment, your family, your relatives, your friends, things like that, how that may be even kind of supporting your will, that inner calling. So that's just another thing that's coming in there. Dream work would maybe be something at this time to kind of, if you're looking for some sort of inspiration somewhere, maybe dream work, or maybe even doing just some like cloud gazing or some scrying, or maybe even working doing like some candle work. This is Leo energy here, so thinking about fire. Mars is in Leo, so here's something to think about there. Now let's get into your fourth card here, which talks about any sort of like things that you want to accomplish, looking at your foundation, things along those lines, maybe questions of career, home space, things like that. So you got the Four of Wands here. And I'm getting for this energy one, there could be this thing of maybe where you're getting ready to maybe change your status, as far as like maybe you're getting ready to get married possibly, or maybe you're getting ready to get to this place of maybe you're graduating. This could be from school, or or just whatever this is, and now you're getting ready to get to this next level that's happening. You've reached a milestone with this Four of Wands here. And one, I would say, just kind of revel in that for a minute. Really kind of think about like how this has improved your foundation, about who you are. And then of course, once you've been in that, where is that going to take you forward? What is the next thing? What do you feel called for? But it's like I'm getting a thing like, don't rush the accomplishments. Allow yourself to be in that celebratory energy. This is Venus and Aries here. The things that you've attracted, that you've accomplished. Yeah, I think there's something about reveling in that. Yeah, that's all I'm getting from that one there. Now let's get into your fifth card, and I'm kind of I'm just kind of playing around with these pulls right now. I'm kind of doing them based off of the zodiac axes here. And the fifth card is going to deal with, as far as like, what are your hopes, dreams, aspirations for the future? What are some ways that what are some ways you want to express yourself? And how to get that support. All right, so you have the Nine of Wands here, and to me, this almost, I'm getting this energy of, one almost like it's a guarded, self-conscious kind of energy that I'm feeling with this. Maybe you have this expectations for what you want to do, how you want to express, how you want to, what your future is wanting to be. And it's like you wanted to defend that, but it's like there's this challenge of like, maybe there's like the group that you're around, the friends that you're around, something that's not, it's like something that's challenging that, maybe in a way, challenging your self identity. Like if you want to get more of this support, that it's something like it's trying to move you in a certain direction here. That's interesting. And then it almost feels like there's this rigidness that's coming with there. It's just like, no, I've worked on this thing. This is how I want it. That's it. Yeah, I'm really just kind of being on guard here. But let me get a clarifier with this Nine of Wands. Interesting. So you got the Eight of Wands here as a clarifier. And it almost, maybe this is like other people's expectations possibly. You have this visualization for the future, but it's like people want to see all of these things for you, and it's like you're not sure how to do all of the things possibly. Or it's like how you're going to make that work with what you actually want to do here. And maybe you've even, this Eight of Wands is like a card of messages, and maybe you have people, maybe you have this, it's like you have this thing that people want to see. And it's just like maybe maybe we're feeling the pressure of this possibly here. Yeah, that's a very interesting energy that's coming through. It's like things are just like moving faster than maybe you expected. And that might not be a bad thing, not entirely. Like where another energy that's kind of coming through is the thing that maybe you've been working so hard there for. This could finally be where you're starting to see some movement, where you're starting to see, and it's like, just sticking to your strength. Like of course we want to evolve and we're going to change and things like that, but yeah, that's a very interesting energy. I think that's all I got for you there. Now let's get into your last card here, which I'm kind of lumping this in with as far as like your any sort of like maybe shadow influences, any sort of struggles that may be coming through, and this also can deal with like health and things along those lines as well there. But let's see what's going on as far as those energies. So you got the Two of Swords here. And maybe this is something where you've been having troubles maybe keeping some sort of like mental peace. Maybe there's been a lot, maybe the mind's been at odds possibly here. That good spirit versus bad spirit type of energy there, where it's like, one side is trying to lift you up and the other is lift you, trying to, not necessarily pulling you down, but showing you where. Because I don't, even when you think about those sort of like bad energies in a sense, like I don't think it's necessarily like they're just trying to just dismantle you, but they are showing you areas where it's like, hey, you're going to need more strength here, in this area. We're going to need to refine that some more because this thing does affect you in some sort of way there. And this could even be literally, maybe there's like something where maybe there's like a certain food that you're noticing that like you grew up loving it, or you've had this time loving it, but maybe something's changed in your health and you can't have that thing anymore. Or maybe you got some sort of like news and now your certain lifestyle that you've been living, you have to adjust that. And that might even be going back to this, even going back to that Nine of Wands to the Eight of Wands. You got a message from the Eight of Wands, and now you've been kind of fighting tooth and nail to try to keep this thing going, but it's like it's not working, and now it's almost like you need to make a kind of reconcile that situation where it's like, okay, this may not be exactly what I wanted to do, but if I want to continue the work that I want to do in this journey, then I have to respond in kind here. But let's get a clarifier for this Two of Swords. So you got the Death card here. And yeah, there's something there that is needing to change. Something that you're maybe feeling really deeply, and the change may seem frightening. I'm just looking at this skeleton here as this girl's about to peek here, but it may not be as bad as you think initially. Like that might start off a little rough, but then it's like as you get into the routine of the change, you find yourself able to balance out a bit better. Kind of come to peace with the changes that are happening. Kind of, it's almost like getting into this energy of acceptance. That this is how things are going to be, and that doesn't mean it has to take away from the abundance of self, the energies that you have, or it may change that dynamic, maybe even how you relate to yourself, maybe how you feel your inner energies. This may again call on some kind of strong spiritual energy, maybe. And maybe too, this kind of Five of Wands, this Nine of Wands, maybe you've been feeling a bit, like I said, defensive. People have been kind of telling you this thing, and been kind of forcing. Yeah, I don't want to say forcing, but it's just like, it just feels like there's just this assault that's just kind of coming through there. And you just want this to be over with this Four of Wands. You just want to see this thing to be done. But yeah, it's very interesting. But let's get a last card here get some advice get some last thoughts from the moon. Interesting. So you got the Bat Spirit here, which talks about a rebirth is assured. And I mean, kind of coming to that death card here. There's some sort of change that I think is happening in whatever area. Again, this is falling in finances. If this is like your spirituality, or maybe your higher education, family things, whatever. I think wherever you may be noticing these things changing. That, I mean. And I think that this isn't just talking about just a specific situation. I think that this is really just talking about the process in general. That rebirth is assured in every area of our life. Where the one constant is change. And if that's something the moon reminds us of all the time. The moon is the fastest body in our solar system that goes around the chart, changes signs every couple of days, does what the sun does in a year and a month. So, and I think that it's a reminder that we're always going to be in this state of flux. So it's like in the sooner that I feel we learn to ride the wave, even kind of like how this Knight of Cups is, we learn how to be in that water and be comfortably in it. Then it gets to where we're surfing the waves as opposed to being just like toppled and moved around like I'm just getting a image of like a washing machine. So just some things to think about there. Now let's switch over here and get to this last energy, which is going to be some advice from the I-Ching here. And you got hexagram, which is interesting since we're talking about water, but you got hexagram 57, which is wind. And like I said before, you got changing lines 2, 5, and 6. So if you want to look into that more closely, definitely check out. I have a link down in there for the website that I get the kanji from. But yeah, definitely look into these different resources, meditate on these things, see what comes up for you. But let's get into the changing lines here, because changing line 2 speaks of crouching under the bed. The shaman smears blood on you. All's well, no ills. And this to me, if there's crouching under the bed, gives me this energy of hiding from something. Oh, and this hexagram is wind over wind, by the way. So just air all day. But maybe you've received a message for something. You've been maybe kind of hiding from this. But this shaman could be this thing of like, maybe this is coming from some advice, as far as like someone like helping you to kind of guide you through whatever this transition may be going on here. Maybe it's almost like giving you again that kind of courage from this, with that lust card to help you face whatever it is going on, because then all is well. The sooner you face these things, all's well, and there are no ills. You've gotten ahead of again whatever this may be applying for you. If this is in finances, if this is in maybe some sort of family affair, maybe this is something where there's a lot going on there and you're needing that kind of inner strength, that inner resolve. Maybe you're going through again whatever this might look like. But yeah, that's what that kind of hex or that changing line is giving me there. But also even to this energy, even like on a spiritual standpoint, the shaman smearing blood on you, there's something very ritualistic about that, something that I would think gives that energy of divine protection. Something that's even kind of coming up for me there. But let's get into your fifth line, which is, this one's a really nice one. This talks about good omen, regret disappears, everything goes well, a poor beginning gives way to a good ending, auspicious. Auspicious 3 days before the 7th and 3 days after the 7th. So this to me, even if a situation starts off kind of, like I said, poor beginnings give way to new endings. Let's say if we're getting some information about our health and it's not the most ideal news, but it's like, okay, at least now I know what I'm dealing with. And that everything can go well from here. It was a crappy start, but now we're getting into this view, getting into this where we're noticing these changes. But I think that there's something where there's a time window for this. I think that's something, if there's something that's been, I'm just thinking about that wind. If you've been getting any sort of any sort of messages, any sort of nagging thing, something like that, that 3 days before the 7th, 3 days after the 7th, there may be a window frame that you may want to do a number of things. Start up a new endeavor. Go get ahead. Go get a checkup. Go have this conversation. Go do this thing. But I think that there is, again, this is not one where you want to, when you feel that call, explore that, see if you can do something about this. Because then the last or the last changing line talks about crouching under the bed, the travel money is lost, misfortune. And so we can go ahead and switch back over here. But yeah, again, I think with this energy, the longer that you wait on something, it would stink to have to regret it later. And even if you do happen to miss a window, you wait on something, and then this to me would be like, okay, you notice a leak somewhere, for example. No leaks. Hopefully there's no leaks for you. But let's say you notice a leak and it's like, okay, well, I'll just kind of do a little bandy thing right now and just kind of do this, and hopefully that'll get me by. And then you wait and then poof, pipe burst, and then now what would have been maybe let's say $100 fix, now it's $1,000 fix, because now we got water damage, we got all these things. So that's just something that I would get eyes on, get ahead of that stuff now, just bring it to completion. And this could be where you maybe, if it's a plumbing thing, for example, maybe you do want to, let me learn some more about this. I'm noticing these things, I want to have this skill too, so that I can be on top of this, so maybe I don't have to maybe shell out this money, or, I'm just throwing out some examples there. But just some things I think to think about when we're getting with these energies. But that's all I got for you there. So if you like that, if anything resonated with you, give it a thumbs up. And share this if you know somebody who can get some nuggets of wisdom from this. And subscribe, you Empress. Hit that bell button to get notified on all these videos each day. And if you want to work with whether it be working with your astrology, working with or working with the transits that are happening to your chart, or if you just want to get a tarot reading, an I-Ching reading, down in the description box there's a link of the services, or there's a list of the services that I provide, the prices for them. And if you have any questions as far as how the process works, there's my email down there, so definitely feel free to reach out to me. And also, if you want to just keep track of what the what the celestial bodies are doing, the sun and the rest of the planets are where they're transiting at, in the description box there's a link for my other channel, Alchemist 8, where I release videos every Mercury day. I'm actually about to do that one right now. But yeah, there's the releases every Mercury day. And it's just talking about how to work with the energies more practically. So, and how to bring that stuff from the heavens down to earth, and what are some themes to look at. So, and then I also on that channel do these videos where I talk about different planets and celestial and luminaries in different signs and different houses. So, and just kind of my thoughts on that. So, definitely check that out there. But until next time, stay mindful out there and keep raising that, or keep eyes on that moon. Yeah, you can keep raising the vibration. Why not? And I will get you on the next one. Be lovely. Empress Day.